was Halloween night in the small, picturesque town of Hollowbrook. The air was filled with the sweet scent of autumn leaves, and the streets were adorned with jack-o'-lanterns that flickered with an eerie glow. The townsfolk had eagerly awaited this night, and they were ready to celebrate in grand style. In Hollowbrook, Halloween was a time for everyone to come together. The entire town transformed into a living, breathing Halloween party. Children dressed as goblins and witches ran from house to house, collecting candy from generous neighbors, while teenagers embarked on a thrilling scavenger hunt, searching for hidden treasures amidst the darkness, as the sun dipped below the horizon. A group of young adults gathered in the heart of Hollowbrook's ancient forest. Under the silvery light of the full moon, they planned to partake in an age-old tradition, a spellcasting ritual to add a touch of real magic to their Halloween celebration. They had found an old spellbook in the dusty corner of the town's library, filled with arcane rituals, and they were eager to put it to the test. Emily, the self-proclaimed witch of the group, led the way. She wore a tattered black robe and a pointed hat, complete with a broomstick and a faux cauldron filled with dry ice. Her friends, dressed in their own supernatural attire, gathered around her. As they lit candles and chanted incantations from the spellbook, the forest seemed to come alive with enchantment. At first, it was all in good fun. They caused leaves to swirl in the air, created ghostly illusions that danced among the trees, and even summoned eerie but harmless apparitions that sent shivers down their spines. Their laughter echoed through the woods, as they reveled in the magical spectacle they had created. But then, as the incantations reached a fever pitch, something changed. The air grew heavy with an unnatural chill, and the forest fell into an eerie silence. The moon's glow intensified, casting a pale, sinister light over the group. Emily's friends began to panic as they realized that they had lost control of their magical experiment. The spell, meant to be an entertaining diversion, had taken on a life of its own. It was as though they had awakened something ancient and malevolent. The ground beneath their feet quaked, and the trees whispered ominous secrets. Shadows in the shape of monstrous creatures slithered through the underbrush, their eyes glowing with a sickly green light. The friends, still clutching their spellbook, tried to reverse the enchantment, but it was too late. The spell had opened a rift between the living and the dead. In a sudden and terrifying moment, the ground split open, revealing a gaping chasm. From it emerged a legion of the undead, clad in tattered burial shrouds, their eyes hollow and soulless. Groaning and moaning, they advanced upon the group of young spellcasters with relentless, undead determination. Panicked and terrified, Emily and her friends scattered in all directions, trying to evade the advancing horde. They ran through the dark forest, pursued by the relentless dead, whose bony fingers reached out to grab them. The once playful atmosphere had turned into a nightmare of true horror. Back in Hollowbrook, the town's Halloween festivities continued, oblivious to the supernatural calamity that was unfolding in the forest. Trick-or-treaters roamed the streets, reveling in the joyful spirit of the holiday. As the night deepened, the celebratory mood grew more exuberant, with townsfolk dancing to eerie music and feasting on Halloween treats. But as the town clock struck midnight, a shadow fell over Hollowbrook. A cold, bone-chilling wind swept through the streets, and the joyful laughter turned to frightened screams. The undead, summoned by the accidental spell, had reached the town. The once idyllic streets were now filled with the living dead, their moldering hands outstretched, seeking the warmth of the living. Panic and chaos erupted as the townsfolk ran in all directions, desperately trying to escape the onslaught of ghouls and zombies. Houses were besieged, and the town square became a battleground as the undead and the living clashed in a terrifying and gruesome struggle. The Halloween decorations that had once adorned the streets were now twisted into macabre Nightmarish shapes, adding to the horror of the situation. In the midst of the chaos, Emily and her friends emerged from the forest, their faces etched with guilt and terror. They had unwittingly unleashed the apocalypse upon their beloved town, and now they had to find a way to set things right. Desperation led Emily to consult the spellbook once more, searching for a way to undo the enchantment. The answer lay in a complex incantation, one that would close the rift and banish the undead back to their eternal slumber. As the battle raged on around them, the group of young spellcasters formed a protective circle and began to chant the incantation. The air grew charged with magic, and the rift that had allowed the dead to enter Hollowbrook slowly began to close. The undead, unable to resist the power of the spell, began to retreat. With a final surge of power, the rift sealed shut, and the undead were banished from the town. The living breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the scars of that horrifying Halloween night would remain forever etched in their memories. The sun began to rise on a town that had survived a Halloween like no other. The streets were in disarray, and the townsfolk were left to pick up the pieces. Emily and her friends, their magical experiment, a lesson learned the hard way, had saved their town from the brink of destruction. The following Halloween, Hollowbrook celebrated with even more fervor, grateful for the safety and unity that had seen them through the darkest night of their lives. But in the back of their minds, they knew that the supernatural world was closer than they had ever imagined, lurking just beneath the surface of their quaint, idyllic town.